Well, hello and welcome to the Two Perfect Pastors podcast. My name is Craig Sumi. I am the pastor of Oakland Presbyterian Church in Oakland, Florida. And I'm joined here by Danny. Hey, Danny.
How's it going, Craig? I am Danny DeMorse. I am the pastor at First Pres Kissimmee in Kissimmee. It's very convenient how our church is named so that you know exactly where to find each of our churches.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, because you get these churches that are called Quest Church, but it doesn't really give you any sense of where the thing actually is, right?
Exactly.
So at least you know where we are.
Exactly.
It just takes away a lot of the trouble of finding a church. So hey, how's your summer been going?
You know what? Like at First Pres, before I've been at First Pres for 2 years now, and the summers were usually like slow times.
Yeah.
Like less Sunday school classes, less everything. It was
Yeah.
a little bit. This summer, we've had electrical work. We're getting the building tented this Thursday. So tomorrow we have to dig trenches around the church so all the flowers don't die, and get all the food from our food pantry out. And then and it was
Holy
massive
cow.
electrical work, and the electrical work led to AC work. And this summer has been insane.
That sounds.
I'm looking forward to the
beyond
summer
insane.
being over.
I'm just looking forward to. I mean, is the whole church going to be tented, or just like the back building? In other words, I mean, is there going to be a steeple that's like under tarps and stuff?
Great question. So, First Pres Kissimmee, the sanctuary was built in 1886. The
Yeah.
church was chartered in 1884. Sanctuary built in 1886. Same sanctuary we still worship in today.
That's amazing.
When they added on to the church, they did attached add-ons.
Yes.
So you
I've
have
seen that.
to
I've
tent.
visited your church. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to tent the entirety of the building,
The whole
even though there's a
thing.
large part that's block and termites don't matter there. You have to tent the entire building.
That
The
would look
two-story
impressive. I'm going to have to
CE.
make a trip to Kissimmee just to see the spectacle of a whole church.
Yeah, I think
covered with because they always have these crazy colors. You
like
know,
carnival tents.
they're like it's like the circus pig top or something.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I'm sure that'll get some attention.
So that'll be special, and then we don't get to worship in the sanctuary this Sunday because of it.
Oh, just one Sunday, or are you gonna
Just one Sunday.
Okay.
So sermon's going to be church without a home.
Church without a home?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, speaking of home, I took the week off last week. It was really been my only vacation of the summer.
Nice.
But I did not, cover my body in coconut oil or go strap on my hiking boots and go to the mountains and
Thank you for
climb mountains and
yeah.
stuff. Yeah. Did you like that image? You're welcome.
Yeah.
And
Don't think about that too hard, folks.
and so I was in my guest bathroom for my entire vacation.
Were you remodeling?
I was
hope?
remodeling. Yes,
Thank-
I was. Yeah, no,
Thank goodness. Yeah.
I was. I was in my guest bathroom, just sitting there, meditating. But no, I was remodeling it and fighting with plumbers and all that stuff. So, but
the joys.
people kind of go, that doesn't sound like a vacation, and it's not like restful. Obviously, I mean, my body is just sore each and every night. I work 8 to 9, hours, just kind of plugging away at all this stuff, and it's kind of the tile and you're demoing tile. It's really really heavy, and when you're putting in tile, there's just a lot of it, you're having to crunch over
Yep.
and your back is killing you and stuff like that. So, but it's so nice because, as a pastor, your mind is just constantly engaged with all the stuff that's going on in the church, and Sunday's always at least 7 days away. And
Feels like less, but yep.
Exactly, it does feel like less. And it kind of gets to be a grind. And so just to be able to step out of that for like a week and just focus on something that's sort of tangible, and you could actually see immediately the impact that you're making. I just thought that was it's kind of nice, and I have fun doing modeling projects.
I'm curious. I've been ordained for less time than you have.
Yes.
I've First Pres Kissimmee is my first call, and so I was ordained there. So I've been ordained for 2 years. More recently went through like the whole
but
process.
You were in ministry for quite a while before you got ordained.
Correct, but I had to jump through all the denominational hoops to get ordained, right?
Exactly.
And for me, part of that was going through like a psychological evaluation for multiple days.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Did they
Very
require
key.
that when you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for mine, it was very insightful for myself. There was a couple of things about me. It's like, yep, that's true. But when we were just talking about me, and I enjoy renovation projects. I'll do renovation projects. I did all the flooring in our house. I always change the oil in our cars when it's time to change the oil. And then the person who was counseling me was saying, in your work, you do a lot of stuff, and you never get to see the results from it a lot of times,
Yeah.
and you're not sure how much of an impact you're
For
making.
sure.
But when you remodel something or when you change the other car, you're like, look, I did that. I accomplished it.
Yep.
I can see the results of my work, which is a very satisfying thing, apparently, especially for pastors, when they do not get to see if what they are doing is having an impact a lot of the time. So in your home life, to have that thing, whether it's finishing a puzzle or remodeling a bathroom or whatever, like that's not just some, philosophical,
Yeah.
trying to philosophically impact somebody in a
Yep.
spiritual way.
Yeah, you actually can see things changing. Yeah,
Correct.
yeah, so I enjoyed it. It was actually fun, but it was exhausting, and I don't feel like I'm any more rested going
Yeah.
back to work.
Was it
today.
one of those projects that you knew exactly what you were getting into, or halfway
Oh yeah.
through?
Oh yeah. I go in with a battle plan. But the problem is dependent on electrician and a plumber. And the electrician, he was great. He came right in, did the job, out, no fuss, no muss. Plumber, I went through 3 plumbers
Whoa.
just trying to get, because we were replacing a regular tub with a jetted tub.
Ooh,
Yeah,
fancy.
so that's a little bit more complicated.
Yes.
And it's the house is on a concrete slab, and so there was all sorts of opinions about how we were going to put the drain in and all this stuff, and some of the quotes were just out of this world. I mean, they were just thousands of dollars, and I was just like, I don't want to pay that much just for putting in a tub. And so I finally found a plumber that could do it like right away, because
Oh,
it was
nice.
my week was starting to back up.
Yep.
And
Plumbing backup.
yeah, and it took them a whole day though to get it done. Yeah, plumbing backup, very good.
Yeah. You had a
Um,
joke there. You didn't even see it.
No, it was good. It's good. Hey, what do you think of our name? Two Perfect Pastors.
It's terrifying. It's a lot to live up to. So when I hear it in a very sarcastic way,
yes,
because I am
I think that
I
was
am
what we
far
intended.
from perfect. So the thing that scares me is anybody thinking that we are taking ourselves too seriously.
Yeah, tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
Um,
If you want proof that I'm not perfect, you could go to First Pres Kissimmee, search us on YouTube, and just watch last week's service, and you'll see. No, that
Same
man
with
is
me.
that man is not perfect.
Same with me. Same with me. Don't do it for last week, because then you'll think that I was Sharon Tatum,
Yep.
a wonderful black woman who came and preached at this
Wow,
church.
that voice does
and
not
goes,
match the
yeah,
face.
No, it does not. It does not. Well, hey, let's do our first segment, and we're big sports fans. You
Yes,
and
we are.
we love sports, and so power rankings are huge with sports, and how sports gets reported on, and the content that we love to read. They're always doing these power rankings of leagues and divisions and even positions and stuff like that. So I was thinking, why can't we power rank the Bible?
Yeah, I think
Let's
it's
power rank the Bible.
It's a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
And like most power rankings, they don't matter.
They don't matter at all. They don't matter
It's
at all.
never really
No.
the end of how everything's going to turn out.
No, they don't base the
It's-
playoffs on the power rankings, so it's just a
Correct.
total, it's total fun boredom filler.
Yep.
And so I just thought let's do a power ranking of the Bible, the power ranking of Jesus' disciples,
The 12
Jesus'
the 12 disciples.
the 12 disciples. Yeah, let's put them in order. And what are your first 3? If you were 1, 2, 3, who are your top?
So top 3. Well, like I'll tell you my number 1, and I think this is a number 1 for a lot of people, so this feels like a cheap answer, but would be Peter. Because Peter's called the rock that the church will be built upon. Peter's like this
He gets the most exposure, right? I mean, he gets
he's
the most
mentioned more than any of the other disciples, and so his name gets out there a lot, so it feels like a gimme. But that's not why I like Peter.
Okay.
I like Peter because of his mistakes, right? Like Peter famously is like, Jesus, I would never deny you. He's like, you're gonna deny me 3 times before the rooster crows, or before morning comes, right? The idea is like roosters crow in the morning. It's like, man, in the dawn, you're gonna deny me 3 times. Like, no, I never would. And then he's like, no, I don't know that man. I don't know, man. What are you talking about, right? And then he has this heartbreaking moment as the rooster crows, and it's just like, oh, and it's just like, that is when I feel like Peter truly became a disciple of Christ. Actually, when the rooster crowed, when he realized that he couldn't rely on himself because on his own he fails, right?
Yeah.
Like Peter, the guy who the church gets built upon, Jesus called him Satan, right? That gives me hope.
All right, so Peter is your number 1 because he's relatable.
Yeah, see, yeah,
Okay,
I relate to
got
the
it.
idea of here's this guy who wants to go so hard for Christ, so hard that he
Mhm.
does so. He cuts off somebody's ear.
Yeah.
He gets called Satan. He denies Christ because he's relying so much on himself. And it's like it kind of puts things in perspective for me that if there was hope for Peter,
Yeah.
there's hope for me.
Yeah. Okay, so he's near number 1. Yeah. So that's wrong, actually.
Oh,
That's
so
yeah.
what's
no? Mine,
so
I'm number 6.
he's
Simon
number
Peter's number
6
6.
for you.
Yes, because he's annoys me. Oh my gosh, he is
Oh,
so frustrating.
Wait till you get to my bottom.
He's so
ones.
frustrating. He just doesn't get it. He keeps screwing up and screwing up and screwing up. So I think it's the same for me. Is I see way too much of myself in Peter. There's no way I'm
Yeah.
going to put him in my top 3.
Yeah,
because
I
I wouldn't
think-
put myself
I
in the
think
top 3 of anything.
The
So,
best image I see of like is yeah, exactly.
yeah.
That,
No,
that,
my,
that's
my
fair,
number
that's fair,
1
I
is
get it.
Andrew.
Why Andrew?
I love Andrew. Oh my gosh, Andrew. Well, for one, patron saint of Scotland. I mean, he is
Oh, that's fair.
huge in Scotland. The flag of Scotland with the blue field and the white X in it. That's called the flag of St. Andrew.
So
And but
I want to interrupt you for a second. I grew up. I'm first generation American. My family was quote unquote Catholic growing up. I say that because the 3 times they went to church was when they baptized their 3 kids. Oh, 4 times when they got married. Right? They went to church for weddings and baptisms. So I know saints in the Catholic Church. I always assumed Scotland was more Protestant. Are saints big in Scotland?
no. Scotland was so Catholic before it became Protestant.
Oh, so like
Very Catholic.
historically.
Oh yeah, we won't go into all the history
Okay,
of Scotland.
sorry, thank
yeah.
you.
But
I
Andrew
love-
is,
yeah.
Andrew, patron saint of Scotland, among other places. But the cool thing about Andrew is he's always inviting people to come see Jesus. He invites his brother. He's the one. When people say we would see Jesus, that he's saying, well, let me take you to him. Even the kid that has the loaves and fishes for the feeding of 5,000, it's
Yep.
Andrew the one that brings him up to Jesus. And so I just love the fact that Andrew's always introducing people to Jesus. That's kind of what I want my life to be. And so he's not so much who I relate to as what I aspire to be.
That's fair.
Okay,
I mean,
so round.
his best quality is being Peter's brother, but go ahead.
It
continue.
does no, it's not true. He is Peter's brother, but I'm choosing the other brother. So round out your top 3 with just a quick hit about why you have him in your top 3.
So it's hard for me not to include John, like
Okay.
the disciple that
Agreed.
Jesus loved, right?
He's my number 3.
He's like he was. I was playing between number 2 and number 3 for him, partially just like he has such a way with words, like so part of the like you talked about how Andrew introduces people to Jesus, right?
Right.
So like I did a deep study on the Book of John a little while back, and it's like if you could rename the Book of John, you could call it like Who is Jesus, right? Like where the first 3 Gospels are kind of like this like biography of Jesus'
Yeah.
life. John's like, that's great, but let me tell you about
I love how he does a different take completely.
let me tell you about the person. It almost comes off like lawyer-y.
Yeah.
Like, here's my argument for why Jesus is the Messiah. This is who Jesus is.
Yeah.
And like in that, it's like I get it. I get how your heart was for Jesus. I understand how you saw him, what you understood of Jesus. And I'm not saying he was perfect by any means, right? And like
Yeah.
but it's just like such an interesting like perspective and relationship with Jesus. That it was hard not to include him in my top 3. So he's in your top 3 too.
He's in my top 3.
So
and
so we have agreement. So who's one of your other ones?
well, top 3. I'm going to go. John is my number 3.
Okay.
Mainly because he wrote so much great stuff in the New Testament. I mean, traditionally, we don't know if he himself wrote it. For sure, there's lots of different opinion on it. But I think the fact that you have John's Gospel, which is an awesome
Yep.
gospel in terms of how much it adds to the other 3. You have first, second, and third letters of John.
Yeah.
3 of them.
Yep.
2 of them are so short, it doesn't really say a whole lot. But and then of course Revelation.
Revelation.
Yeah. So I mean, you get all this great stuff, but it's a lot of varied stuff as well. And so John. So my number 2 is Thomas.
Doubting Thomas.
Doubting Thomas.
So
Yeah.
he was up there for me. He ended up at number 4. Why is he your number?
He's my
your
number 2.
2.
Well, somebody once did a sermon that I heard on Thomas, and he was asking the question, okay, while all the rest of the disciples, this is after Jesus' crucifixion, all the disciples are huddled up in a room, where's Thomas? Why isn't he with them?
Yeah.
And so it just gave the theory, anyway, that Thomas wasn't afraid. He was going out and saying, "Hey, okay, we lost Jesus, but we got to keep doing his work. We got to keep doing his mission." So he's out doing stuff.
He
And they
wasn't
have
hiding.
and they have to come to him and find him and say, "Hey, Jesus, we saw Jesus, resurrected Jesus," and he's going, I don't know, because he's practical guy. I mean, he's just a get down to business kind of guy, and he just wanted to get out and start working.
Yeah.
He, so um, obviously the doubting Thomas thing is his label that's given to him, but I kind of want to think about him being courageous, sort of bold Thomas as well.
Well, and to give him a little credit, like it's funny. Like I remind the people in like church this, like sometimes like if I'm preaching on like Abram or even like the disciples or whatever, like they didn't have the Bible.
Yeah.
They didn't have all the stuff that we have because like that history was happening.
Yeah,
So it
right.
wasn't written about yet, right? So like the reason like you get like Abraham and Moses and stuff like heroes of faith, it's because like they were really going on faith. They weren't like going on Wikipedia and being like, which religion best fits me or
Exactly.
whatever, and what's all the proof and who are the best philosophers
didn't
out
have
there
Wikipedia
that make
back then?
this
Is that what you're
argument?
saying?
Yeah.
Man, been around forever.
Can you imagine having a tablet that all sorts of people could edit, like a stone tablet? That would
Back
be
then?
yeah, that would be.
What would we have now?
Yeah. So, but like the idea that he doubts, I think we all doubt. But he didn't say, "I'm not sure about this. I'm backing out." He was willing to engage and ask questions.
Oh, exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
Like,
there's the famous, where Jesus says, "You know the way to where I'm going," and Thomas is the one who says, "But Lord, we don't know the way. So how can you say that we know where you're going?" And that's just totally sets up Jesus'
Yeah.
great line, "I am the way and the truth and the life." So it totally works. He's almost like a foil
correct.
for Jesus
Correct.
there. So who's your number
Questions are-
two then? No, John's your two. Who's
John,
your three?
my three, because it was almost Thomas. My three ended up being Matthew.
Good. Yeah. Matthew's my four.
His year four?
Yeah.
Okay, so we were close there.
Mhm.
Except your hate on Peter, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
But
Way down.
Matthew is my three. Not only because of the book of Matthew and obviously the great things that he did and with the church and everything, but partially because he's a tax collector.
Uh-huh.
Which it's like, I love that the Bible. It's like, oh, how can you be with sinners and tax collectors? Like considering like the scum of the scum, right? And rightfully so to some degree. Tax collectors wouldn't just collect what they had to; they'd go above and beyond to look extra good for the Romans.
Yeah.
And to pad their own pockets, and they were just absolutely despised and hated, and nobody wanted to associate with them except Jesus. And the reason that just makes me thoughtful is because I sometimes think about like, who do we feel like belongs in our church?
Mhm.
And we say everybody's welcome, but is everybody really welcome? Right? Like if the Matthew of today walked into your doors, how would the people react?
Yeah. Is Matthew the patron saint of unpopular kids? We need to look this up. Need to
Of
look this
bullied
up.
kids, but
Yep.
yeah, like it just be interesting, right? Like it keeps me grounded on who Jesus was seeking out to be disciples.
Yeah.
It wasn't always who you expected, right? God very often uses people you don't expect in the Bible to further his story.
Absolutely. So don't want to spend too much time on this, but who's your bottom three? So if you go all the way down the bottom of the list.
Yep.
So at number 10, I have James,
The lesser?
the lesser or the
Yeah,
younger,
like, how
just because
great.
his name.
Oh,
I
hey,
mean,
there's
what a
two of you. That one's
stinky
going to be
name.
the greater, and
I
you're
know.
going to be the lesser.
I know. Is that what they called him all the time? James the lesser?
Pretty
Hey,
much, right?
James the lesser.
Yeah,
Just reminding him that he's inferior. And then, but there's really nothing about him at all. And then Bartholomew, and they can't even agree on what his name is. So
Nathaniel or
it's either
Bartholomew,
Nathaniel
right?
or Bartholomew, depending on the list that you're looking at. And then number 12, I just felt like I had to put Judas, just because, he betrayed.
Let me call a cop out
Jesus.
on that.
Yeah, but you didn't have
He's not-
Judas in your bottom three,
I
did
do
you?
not, and I'll tell you one in a second. But just another reason to not like Nathaniel. He was also like against the people of Nazareth, like John 1:46. Nazareth, can anything good come from there?
Oh, man.
It's something that he says. So he just like
That's how I feel about Claremont. Oops.
they're getting a Costco soon.
Yeah, that is a good thing.
I'll
I'm
be
looking
frequenting
forward to
that
the Costco. But Highway 50 is a nightmare. I just can't stand it.
Infrastructure in there and Kissimmee is not great.
No.
So my number 12 was Simon the Zealot.
Ah, really?
When have you ever
He was
heard?
my number 7.
When have you ever heard? He was next to Peter.
Yes.
How dare you?
He's totally. I even debated even.
Oh, I can't continue this podcast. I feel sick. When have you ever heard somebody being called a zealot in a good way?
Oh no, I kind of saw that as a good thing.
Really?
Yeah.
No, for me
Yeah,
that's
he's
like
passionate, man.
no, that's like this is like pyramid scheme stuff. It's like, hey, hey,
Yeah, it's
Craig, let me tell you
zealots
about
are not getting
this
good
yarn.
press these
This
days.
yarn
That is true.
is gonna change your life.
Yeah.
We can't even describe the health benefits this yarn is going to bring you. The reason we can't describe it is because there's been no studies to it whatsoever.
Yeah.
But people have said it changes their life.
See, you
and
have
if
a
you
very,
sign up, you can sell this
you have
yarn.
a very narrow
But
view
let
of
me
zealotry.
let me talk over you for a second. If even more so, beyond just selling it to other people and being able to spread the joy of this yarn that brings indescribable greatness to your life.
Yeah.
If you get other people to sign up for it as well, yeah, no, like the idea of zealotry just drives me crazy. Like
Okay.
he's like that does not sound like you'd give the name of somebody you want to hang out with.
Yeah.
Right? Like zealots are exhausting.
See,
like
I want
being in the same room with them for too long.
Yeah,
is
I want to bring zealotry back into favor. But so anyway, let's moving on to kind of the main topic. And there was an article that came out Christianity Today. This would have been July 24th.
Let me
Sorry, July 19th.
I have to say one thing because you had mentioned it. Judas.
Judas. Yes.
And there's 2 Judases, right? So
There- well, yeah, I guess so.
yeah, there's 2 Judases in the 12 disciples, but Judas who betrayed Jesus, I feel like he gets a bad rap and being put at number 12 on a lot of lists. I feel like a lot of people he'd be last because he betrayed Jesus, and I think if that betrayal didn't directly lead to Jesus' death, like if he tried betraying Jesus like earlier on and it was
Okay.
foiled, it's like, oh, he was just an idiot, right? Like Peter screws up all the time, but it didn't directly lead to Jesus' death.
Yeah.
But why did Judas die? Did Judas die because Judas betrayed him?
Yeah.
No, he died for your sins and mine. I think.
You need to be careful with continuing this argument because now Peter is really starting to slip in my rankings. He may actually be. He may actually be in last
All right.
place.
Let's get on to
So
the next
anyway,
segment.
moving on.
Let's talk about a more popular topic, hymns.
So there's an original article in Christianity Today by Kelsey Kramer McGinnis.
What a name.
That Lifeway, which is a big publishing company for the Southern Baptist Church. Lifeway was closing the book on an online hymnal that was supposed to be the digital future of Baptist music. The online resource, lifewayworship.com, which provides church choirs and worship teams access to more than 3,000 songs, as well as instrumental arrangements, sheet music, and choral charts. That's going to shut down next month. So anyway, Lifeway, publishing arm of the Southern Baptist Church, has decided to focus its resources on areas where we can faithfully serve more churches in greater breadth and depth. So when this was originally launched in 2008, and it was really supposed to take over. It's supposed to be the modern hymnal. They called it the hymnal without a back cover because you could keep adding to it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's the beauty of digital,
Yeah,
right?
it never went out of date.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, but they also wanted to find a way to preserve, this great music. And let's face it, Baptists have pretty good music.
They do.
Yeah.
And like when I read that, it was a little bit like, hey, we want to find resources that people actually use. It's like not as many people are using this, right?
Right.
Is partially what they're saying.
And they start in terms of adding, they started with 674, which is already more than you could ever put in like a book, but then they got to like 3,000.
It's a lot.
Which is crazy. However, they just found that it just wasn't competing well with some of the other services that aren't necessarily attached to a denomination.
Correct.
And so, for instance, but even with that, Lifeway was way cheaper. This is kind of the crazy things. It was way cheaper.
Really?
Like, for instance, a full orchestration of Chris Tomlin's Holy Forever. I don't know why anybody would want that, but this is available. Sorry, on Praise Charts for $52. That's how you get the full orchestration. Where on LifewayWorship.com, the full score was $6.99. Now I'm not so good at math, but that seems like
that's
a big
difference.
Big difference. It also allowed it. I thought this was big. It allowed lay musicians, so non-staff, non-professional musicians, to purchase music without having to have a paid membership, which was different than sites like Song Select, which has memberships that start at $180 a year. So for people that just wanted to grab something because they're like organizing a women's retreat or something like
Correct.
that, they didn't have to pay out the nose. But even so, they just were finding it wasn't selling very well. People weren't using as much. Now, there has been an update in July 24th that they decided to postpone the discontinuation because they got such of a backlash.
They got such a like people
Such a bad, yeah, people were very,
making
very
decisions
upset.
in a church. Hey, we're gonna do this thing.
Very,
Hey, no,
very
no,
upset.
no! I don't want you to do that. Okay, we're gonna delay doing this thing.
Yeah. Okay. So, music has always been a huge part of Christian worship. Agreed?
Correct.
Okay. Yes.
And a large topic of debate in Christian
Oh,
worship.
always.
Like
always.
it is one of the more important parts and one of the more highly debated parts
Yeah.
of our worship services.
So for a long, 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 long time, I don't know the exact history of the hymnal, but for a long time, the main way that people could sing, in worship
Mhm.
was by using a hymnal.
Correct.
The sanctuaries would have, these boards, special made. I think you said that you were in a church that had these, where the numbers would be on this little bulletin board, which was
We still
at the
have
back of the
that.
church. You still have that?
We still have
Those are
them.
really cool.
So
And
if you're standing on the chancel to the right, like right above the
Yeah.
piano, it's like the hymns for today's worship.
so to have
service.
302 and 81 or whatever, and then
Correct,
you'd know
correct.
what this. Yeah, so it's just using hymnals has been a big deal for a long, long, long time. But now that we have Hillsong and Bethel music and stuff like that, it's all available online and digital with all the orchestrations. You have less choirs. Instead of having people actually read the music out of the hymnal, they're looking
Mhm.
at a screen. They're just not selling as many hymnals, and I'm just wondering, what do you think? Is the hymnal dead? Is the hymnal, is this the death rattle for the hymnal that
Is this
not
the
that an online version, a virtual hymnal, isn't working anymore either?
And so I'll tell you guys this. First Pres Kissimmee is a traditional church. We have the
So
hymnal
you have
board.
hymnals, yeah.
I have asked other churches for their hymnals because we've worn ours out. Like literally, like we had several that were just glued together, like because the spine broke because it got used so much. So I was
How
like,
long do you think you've had them?
these were I want to say like the '94 blue
Oh yeah,
Presbyterian
the blue
hymnals.
ones. Yeah.
Yeah, the blue ones. They did not care for the Gloria ones when those came out,
Yeah.
as apparently a lot of people didn't. But that's neither here nor there. So we still have the blue ones. So churches that had their blue ones from before or weren't using them, like I've asked other churches for theirs just to have a working set in our sanctuary.
Yeah.
Now that tells me two things. A lot of churches were more than happy to give me theirs because they just don't use them.
Yeah.
But First Pres in Kissimmee uses it every week, right? Like it's an important part of how they worship. It's partially what they grew up with. Kissimmee has a lot of like snowbirds and people that move down. So I get a lot of people from the Northeast who grew up in the Northeast
Yeah.
who live in Kissimmee now, right? And they love their hymnal and they love worshiping in that style with that kind of music. So
So we have two hymnals here.
you have two.
Yes. I don't know what they are. All I know is that they are. All I know is that one is brown, has a brown cover, and the other one has a blue cover.
Nice.
But honestly, I don't choose the hymns. Jeremy, our music director, does that. Does an amazing job. I'm so thankful I don't have to choose hymns. It's like one of the worst jobs in the world is choosing
It
hymns.
is. I have farmed that out to.
Have you? Okay. Yeah.
Shout out to Carolyn Castaldo. Saves my butt every week picking hymns because that was the most painful part of preparing for
Way to go,
Sunday
Cheryl.
worship.
Thanks for taking that off Danny's plate
Yeah.
there. But we put the words on the screen, and we use like a planning center app. And so, Jeremy's got all the information in there. I don't have to look at the hymnal at all. I'm just looking at the screen.
Yep.
I don't even know what kind of hymnals we have. I'm literally that little detail oriented. I cannot think
Yeah.
about that. So,
and
but I mean, if you're starting a new church, even a new Presbyterian church, I think a lot of places they're just going to say that's an unneeded expense. We don't need to pay all that
So-
money for a book that's going to be out of date, and we're probably going to use all these songs anyway that aren't even in that book.
Correct. First Pres Kissimmee is in a unique situation just because of the makeup of Kissimmee and everything like that, and who
Mhm.
retires there and whatnot. We don't have screens to project on. Like we don't have a TV
Oh
or
man.
screens, and for them that's how they like to worship, and that's like that
Yeah.
serves them well, and even the people that move into the area, it is serving those group of people well. Now, is that a younger group of people or an older group of people?
Yeah, but yeah, if you were
Mostly.
starting a brand new church and you're trying
So
to reach out to young families or something like that,
so for First Pres Kissimmee,
probably.
I'm not going to try to get rid of their hymnals. It's important to how they understand and express their faith. So it's important to them, and that's why I don't want to say it's dead or not death rattles, because as long as there's people who want to use it and can use it to get closer to God, I think it's a good thing. That being said, if I were to plant a new church today, it would not be on the highest priority to get hymns and do that style of music, because the expense
Yeah.
and the idea, like, part of the issue is like for the people at First Pres who love hymnals, there's hymns in that book that they can't stand, right?
Yeah.
Some words changed, or some tune is changed, or there's some that like just aren't good, that haven't stood
Yeah.
up the test of time
Yeah,
well.
the problem is, I mean, you know, you can make the argument that there's always going to be people who appreciate having a hymnal. It's a big part of what they grew up with, or you know, they love to read music. You know,
Correct,
for one, I
yeah.
mean, there's some people that they just love
They
to read
really
the
enjoy
music,
that.
and they like to sing the soprano part, the alto part, tenor part, and the bass part, depending on the verse.
And some people sing all four at the same time.
exactly, allegedly, it
Yeah.
sort of sounds maybe that way.
Yeah.
And so you would have these hymnals, but the problem is these hymnals have to sell. I mean, these
Correct.
hymnals are not cheap to make,
No.
and I'm certain it's not cheap to manage an online version of a hymnal as well, because you're having to curate all of the new contents that's coming in. So in order to pay for that, I think if you were to buy a hymnal, just a book hymnal today, the lowest price it would be is $25.
That is actually really low from what
But
I've
that's
seen.
but that's if you're buying a whole bunch of them.
Correct, because I've seen closer to like between $30 and $60.
Yeah.
Is
And
the
I'm sure it
price. Yeah.
depends on the hymnal. But if you can't sell these things anymore, then you're going to be relying on the old ones that are still out there, and so they're going to
Yeah, that's
start
what
getting
we've done.
they're going to start getting more and more beat down, and you're just not going to have hymnals
Yeah,
anymore.
that's
And is this something we should be worried about? Is this going to be a tough one for the church to lose the use of hymnals?
like, is it going to be tough for some people to lose hymnals? Yes. Is it going to be bad for the kingdom of God? No. And I'm not saying that hymnals are bad. I'm just saying, like, the church survived before there were hymnals.
Yeah.
Because people think of, like, oh, churches always had hymnals. Like, for as long my mom used a hymnal, her mom used a hymnal. It's like a lot of these hymns were written 14, 15, 1600, so they've been around for a while. But like, Jesus did not write these hymns, right? So as culture changes, as society changes, like, the way we do things changes. Like, even the idea of a hymnal, right? It used to be where you didn't have one in every pew, because you might be in a church where most of the people were illiterate. So you'd have somebody leading from the front.
Yeah.
And they'd have a hymnal, but nobody else would.
Yeah.
Because you were leading in that way, right? Like, so as society changes, as culture changes, as we learn to express ourselves in different ways, the church will be expressed in different ways, and I don't think that's a bad thing. So should we be worried? I don't think so. I think the natural progression and things that you and I do today from the pulpit, I think 60 years from now it's going to be like, why was he
That was
doing-
boring.
That was or that was dumb, or why was he standing there, or what is he wearing? Why is he
Why
in
is
a
he not a
robe?
hologram?
Why is he not in a robe?
Yeah.
Why is he not a
Why is he not a
hologram?
hologram?
Yeah. We thought multi-site churches were a good idea. Like, there's all sorts of things that we try and do to reach people in our context.
Yeah.
That once you remove it from that context, doesn't make sense anymore.
Okay, so I'm going to champion the hymnal in terms of. It's not that I'm obviously I'm not
The guy who doesn't
the guy
know
who
what
doesn't even know what
hymnals
hymnals
are in
Yeah,
the pews.
but here's why. Because
This is your champion. I did say that God chose odd people for tasks.
Exactly.
So for the
Yeah,
champion,
I'm
of
going
the
to Yeah,
hymnals.
he has designated the champion of the hymnal, which is not a job that I applied for. But it seems to me, though, you're not losing so much of a practical tool, because we've found pretty good tools
Correct.
for getting people to sing. It gets their head up so that they're singing out loud a little bit more rather than having their face buried in a hymnal. But
I'm raising my hand like a student in the
yeah,
class.
yeah.
Just
Danny?
to get clarity, are you talking about the death of the physical book, or all the music that a hymnal holds?
Well, I think unfortunately it's going to be a domino effect.
Okay.
Yeah, that you're going to see, because the books aren't being ordered as much. The digital hymnals, I think, are going to be affected as well, because there's alternatives that have a wider reach than a denominational
Okay.
book, or a book that only has certain publication rights.
Sure. That's
You
right.
know, so you have these websites now that you can get all manner of church music,
Correct.
and it's all there. It's
Okay.
it's literally all there.
So champion away.
So
Thank
yeah, so you're not losing a practical tool. What you're losing is context, because in most hymnals there's an ordering
you. Mhm.
that, if you are paying attention at all to where you find a hymn, for instance, in a hymnal, you know, there's a section usually that's praise and adoration. There's a section that has songs about, you know, repentance and confession and forgiveness. There's a section that's about the life of Jesus, right? And also, you kind of learn how a worship service is structured. You know, it begins with adoration, praise, confession. It goes towards, you know, the ministry of the word, and then like the benediction, and so it gives you a sense of how the hymnals give you a sense of how worship should flow, and then the theology.
Why
The theology
why does worship have to flow that way?
Why does it have to flow that way?
Does the
So it
Bible
tells-
dictate that that has to be how a worship service happens, or in our context is that how we find?
But that's what I'm
or
talking about.
whatever.
Is it provides you context. So even if you're switching things around, I mean, I would say, I mean, I hope you're not saying that, you know, you wouldn't have the ministry of Scripture, or you wouldn't have like confession, or you wouldn't have the sacrament. That's not what you're saying, I don't think.
No, I'm not saying necessarily that. I'm just saying people do it in different orders, in different
For
ways,
sure.
for different reasons, and they celebrate those things differently, right?
For sure.
Like
But what a hymnal,
liturgical churches, those things are more evident
right?
than non-liturgical churches.
But what a hymnal points out is that there is a flow. There are these elements in it. And so you're basically having a whole lot of people that aren't going to be learning. I mean, one, you know, how worship flows. They aren't going to be learning, I mean, theology. You know, we have a progression of how our theology unfolds,
Mhm.
you know, how we talk about the gospel of Jesus Christ. And often that progression can be found in how a hymnal is being put together. And then I guess I worry that, you know, because you have this hymnal that has usually a breadth of music, time-wise, you know, that covers different genres,
Yeah.
you know, you're going to be losing that, and you're going to be locked into a particular genre. You're just really we're going to lose that sense of this history of worship music, which is incredibly rich. And I'm not saying we all need to sing hymns. I love praise songs. You know,
Mhm.
Our 845 service, I love singing along with the praise songs. And I know most printed hymnals aren't going to have those songs
Yeah,
in them.
I think printed hymnals are. I'm gonna get beat up at my church for saying this. I kind of feel like it's like carburetors in cars. People like the idea of carburetors, and it's cool, and like cars were loud, but nobody likes them anymore, right? I used to like ride motorcycles, and like it's like, oh, the fuel injected motorcycles, it's so much easier. You press a button, your motorcycle turns on, you just go, right? You don't have to like turn the choke and for the gas and fuel mixture to be right when
Yeah.
you're turning it on versus when it's heated and da da da. And I think there's a lot of like the practical part of a hymnal it's lost its practicality, right? It was convenient to have a book with all these songs that you sang, but now thanks to online, thanks to being able to print whatever you want each week, if that's your style, or email the entire congregation whatever songs you're doing that week, I think it's lost a lot of its practicality. I actually would argue that songs and music in a church now are wider and more colorful than it was when you were just tied to a hymnal,
Yeah.
because that's all that you had, right? So now it's like you want to do a spiritual one week because of for whatever reason, and try to do it well, you can do that. You want to do something contemporary, you can do that. You want to pull out Amazing Grace, or you know, any of the old fantastic hymns that are still out there. I don't think those are going away. I think you're going to see less and less of the paper books, just like you see less and less paper for anything, right? If we were recording
Yep.
this podcast a while ago, we might have notepads in front of us. Do you have a notepad in front of you right now, Craig?
Well, I have the Surface. Do you call this a notepad, Surface tablet?
I do not, because it's
Okay.
a digital version of
So
that, right?
paper
You don't-
notepad is what you're
like
talking about.
you don't have the paper anymore, but the idea still exists.
Yeah.
What you did just changed, because you could have it all on this tablet that you could take home and bring back and upload to. Like, I saw that document before we sat down because you could share it with me digitally. It's the practical use of it is a beautiful thing. Now, some people still love using pen and paper
Yep.
to write.
I don't know though. I think you're losing context and you're losing history with losing the hymnal. If the hymnal goes the way of the dinosaur, because one, it's a book, it's paper, it's not great for the environment. If you have a digital version, people aren't really going to use that because they can find more stuff on one of the other sites, right? Than just a digital form of a hymnal, no matter how open it is. But I think that means that we need to do more educating.
Sure.
For people about what worship is, what our theology is, because the hymnal used to
help with that. It used to be a tool that would help.
It
with
was a great tool.
That's totally fair. I think the lectionary was a great tool as well. Now I don't preach using the lectionary.
Yeah,
I'll use it from time to time, but I don't always use it because it's just not quite as relevant. It was a great tool, so now I think as the future goes on, we're going to find time for other tools, right? Because here's the real question. It's not like you and I are making the decision, are hymnals here or are they going away, right? It's a fact. People are using hymnals less. I'm getting them from churches who no longer use them anymore.
Yeah, right.
They're not publishing a lot of new ones because it takes a lot of paper and a lot of money, and people aren't wanting to pay all that. Planting a new church, a lot of new churches aren't using it. So it's not whether it's good or bad for the church. It's a reality of what's happening. So how do we react to that? And how do we become those perfect preachers that then educate using new ways and new tools to reach the people where they're at in the time that they're at?
Yeah.
Because they all deserve to be reached.
Yeah. I have to admit, though, you lost me like several minutes back when you said the word carburetor. I have no idea. I have no idea what a carburetor does.
I'll need to work on my illustrations.
No clue what a carburetor does. All right, last word. Because preachers rarely get the last word, right? Wink, wink, wink,
obviously.
wink. Yeah. So what did you learn today?
What did I learn today? I learned that you sometimes like smacking a microphone while talking into it, which was a fun
my
thing.
microphone etiquette is way off.
I learned this was a confession moment. How about that?
Yeah.
I've done a number of different podcasts in the past that I've started, and some of them died, and some of them are still going. And I told you that the first recording session for each one has always been a disaster.
Yeah.
And you said it was your mission for this not to be a disaster.
It was my mission that it would not be a disaster. How did we do?
I had fun. I enjoyed it. So,
very cool.
I don't care if you guys liked it or not, but I did.
No,
so.
I had a great time. I had a great time.
So that's what I learned. What about you?
Well, I learned that you have a high tolerance for stupidity because you like Simon Peter so much.
I thought it was because
which
my
makes
co-host.
me feel very comforted. Which makes me think we'll be a good partnership. Well, hey, we are just so glad that you were with us today. Please go and subscribe to our podcast wherever you find your podcasts. Do like us on social media as well. Look for us on social media and share that with your friends. And we will be back with you for the Two Perfect Pastors podcast in 2 weeks.
I think that's what we decided, right?
Every other 2 weeks.
You're watching sausage be made, folks. So enjoy the journey. We will see where we go from here. And
All right.